In today's video, I'm going to be talking about discretion and how you need to keep your gob shut if you live in a small town. So there's a proverb that says, discretion will guard over you, understanding will guard you. So I think it's important for us when we are working in small towns with people that have known each other for years, that we watch what we say and we use discretion, because it really does help to keep yourself free from drama. Today is going to be another story time. I'm really enjoying them, and I think some of you might be enjoying them too. So this is going to be a story about if you live in a small town, why you should keep your gob shut. Okay, so let me paint a picture for you. About 15 years ago, I moved into this town, and I did not work here initially. My town is a really very down-to-earth American kind of town. Let's just say it's a historical town. It's one of towns in New Jersey that's been around for a very long time. Let's just put it this way. George Washington commissioned the first postmaster of our town. We've been around for a while, and there are people that have been here for generations and generations. Like, it's not uncommon to have people whose last names were founding members. And actually in my town, they have what they call like royalty. We consider them royalty, where they're people that have been here since basically the dawn of our nation. They came over here on the Mayflower. That's how long they've been here. So there are people that have streets named after them and parks named after them, and they have never moved out of this town. They've always been here. Now, not like everybody, but there's a lot of people that have always lived here. If that's painting a picture of how deep the roots are here, then you're gonna get the understanding. When you go to the Wawa, there's people there that you will run into that like, they've known each other since they were knee-high to a grasshopper. You get my drift. And I like telling funny stories, so I think this is a pretty good one. A few years ago, my son was in kindergarten. I had this girl that I kind of knew a little bit here and there, and I really liked her, and I kind of had that, like, she could be fun, but maybe like, there were a little bit of red flags, but I felt red flags, but they weren't like glaring red flags. She seemed like a lot of fun, easy breezy kind of girl, and her name was Stella. So Stella is not her real name, but Stella is what her name is going to be for today. So Stella had some kids that were around my son Aaron's age. She was like, oh, let's go, like, we should go to the park. And I just started working in town about 10 years ago. And I started working at a salon very close to my house. I live like that. The salon was literally like 3 miles away from my house, so it wasn't far at all. There was like a shop walkout, which should have been a clue to me, but there was a new owner, and so I wanted to go to this new salon, and there were like people that were my age that were just starting to work there. We were all just sort of new. There was only like 1 or 2 of the girls that kind of knew each other from before, but we were all fairly new to the area. You know, I just started working at that salon, and my son was going to the elementary school, and he was in kindergarten. And there was this lady who kind of gave me some, like, she seemed really fun, she seemed really nice, and I had a little bit of slight red flags. Not like terrible red flags, but like a little, like I couldn't put my finger on what was off, but there wasn't 100%. You know what I'm saying? So Stella, she was like fun, and she seemed easy breezy, and I liked her, but like I said, there's some red flags. So she was like, you know, hey, let's like go to the park, you know? And I was like, okay. So we went to the park. And then we're hanging out and we're talking, we're having a really good time. And she says to me, hey, like, I heard that, you know, you started working at, I heard you just started working at the salon in town. And I was like, yes, I did just start working in that salon. And she said, oh, well, Agnes. And Agnes was my coworker. And I said, oh yeah, like, I know Agnes. And she said, oh yeah, like Agnes is really quiet. Now let me go into like Agnes, because yeah. I had just met Agnes and I had known her for years. Like, I've known of her for years, but I'd never actually worked with her. I had children and I stopped working, and she started working at the same salon that I was at, and but she started working after I had already left to have my kids. So, you know, I had known her by reputation, but I did not really know her. So I finally got to start working with her at the salon in town. So Stella's like, yeah, you know, I know Agnes, and I know her boyfriend, and he's not a very nice person. Now, the one thing I know about, now let me start. The one thing I knew about Agnes was that she was she seemed very shy and quiet. She seemed like fairly nice. But I could tell she was the type of person that didn't really want to talk about anything too personal. She was a very private person. And I really got that sense from her from the get-go. Like, she didn't want to be besties. She didn't want to. So, and that's fine. Like, you know, when you first start working with your coworkers, you guys have to build trust and grow and get to know each other. So I totally got where she was coming from. But there are some people that are more open than other. But that was not what I was getting from Agnes. So I'm at the park and Stella's going, oh yeah, Agnes's boyfriend is like a jerk. And I was like, okay, well, you know, she's my coworker and I'm sorry to hear that she's dating a jerk, but like, you know, what is that to me? Like, I don't really care because, you know, again, she's my coworker and it's none of my business. She and I are like talking and having fun and, you know, the kids are playing. She goes on to say, oh yeah, well, you know, I hadn't been working with Agnes for very long at all, maybe like 2 weeks or so. So it wasn't really like I had a lot of time to get to know her. I knew that, you know, Agnes had a daughter and she never was married, but I know that her boyfriend, John, was married and he had like 2 kids, right? So like, whatever, you know. So like Agnes's boyfriend was like a motorcycle guy. And like, I don't really know much about that. I don't know much about that community or the people in it. I know that he considered himself a Hell's Angels or whatever. I don't care. Like, it's none of my business again. Stella is saying, you know, it's none of my business. I don't care. So she's like, yeah, well, you know, he can just be so kind of rude and he can just be, you know, he says like some really mean things and I don't think he treats her right. And I'm trying to like nicely change the subject because I'm getting to know Stella and I'm getting to know Agnes. And I don't want, like, I already know this is a small town and that people talk. So I really didn't want anything getting back to me because I'm just now trying to build relationships with people and trust with my coworkers. So I feel like it's weird that Stella is sort of coming out of left field where she never had given me these vibes before, but I felt like she was really coming on strong. So I'm trying to like steer the conversation away and I feel like I'm getting steered towards. So finally she's like, yeah, well, I can tell you this, that Agnes's boyfriend is abusive. Now, Agnes had told me that week that her boyfriend had been diagnosed with cancer. And I knew, like, this lady wanted, like, I knew Stella was really kind of driving the point home that she did not like her boyfriend, right? And so I decided that because I didn't like where this conversation was going, that I was going to stop it. I was going to stop the direction of this conversation. And I said to her, you know, Stella, Agnes's boyfriend has cancer. So I really don't think that we should talk about this anymore. Well, let me tell you, friends. Stella says to me, well, I just talked to him last night, and he never mentioned to me that he had cancer. Did what I just tell you start to sink in? At that moment, I realized I was talking to his ex-wife. That's right. She was his ex-wife. And she had been married to him for years. And so she knew the people that I was talking about. And I guess, I don't know why she needed to talk to me about it, but I knew at that moment that Agnes was either going to be really pissed off at me for mentioning it to her, or she was going to understand. I couldn't tell. So I went into the salon and I said to Agnes, I'm really sorry, but the other day I was at the park and I did not know. I knew that your boyfriend had an ex. I had no idea that I was talking to her. And she was really taking the conversation in a direction I didn't feel comfortable with. And I know that you're a very private person. However, I told her that, you know, he had cancer. And she said, that's not a problem. I get it. I understand. She's nuts. Don't worry about it, right? So that was lesson number 1. But what's really funny is I feel like I needed to learn another lesson, and that God wanted me to pay attention. So my daughter, she was young. She was in 7th grade, and she had just started out in the junior high school. And I really wanted her to do well and be, you know, have like good friends. But she had made friends with this one girl, and there were a lot of red flags. And I was not crazy about this girl, but I didn't want to, like, you know, you can't make decisions for your kids. You have to let them make some of their own decisions. So I was letting this friendship, but I didn't feel comfortable about it. So I'm doing this young girl's hair, and she's in high school. And I'm asking her, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, where do you go to school? And she's like, oh, I go to high school, and I'm in like 11th grade. And I was like, oh, that's cool, you know, and what are you into? And blah, 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 just trying to get to know her. And so, like, I'm trying to find common ground to make connections because I'm trying to build my book and get more people in my chair. And so I start talking to her, and I'm like, oh yeah, my daughter is going to school, and she's made friends with some people, and some of them have been good, and some of them I'm feeling a little cautious about, and I'm not so comfortable with. And I almost say the name of the girl. Thank God I didn't, because I happened to be speaking to her sister, who was in my chair. So if I had said her name, it would have really gone bad, if you know what I mean. And so I feel like there are times in life that you need to make sure that you keep your gob shut, especially in a small town, because everybody knows each other, and what you say will spread around. Boom. So I hope you liked this story time. And if you did, please leave a comment below, or you could tell me a story about when you had maybe a scenario that was similar to mine. I would love to hear your stories. So thank you again, and I hope that you liked this, and I will do more story time if you guys want me to. So I hope that you found this helpful. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again later.